The question therefore is, do you want to think the way God thinks? Do you really want to live out your life the way God wants you to live it out? Do you want to manifest the kind of power that God manifests? What kind of life do you want to live? How do you want to go through this life? Do you want to go through this life being at the mercy of the forces of this world, or do you want to go through this life a winner, a success, someone who has everything under control, someone who has lived out in full the purpose of God for his life? Which is your desire? If you want to live life the way God has designed it for you originally, you want to live life to be an instrument through which the manifestations of the thoughts of God for your life will be revealed and made available and made obvious, then it is important that you learn to think the way God thinks. Because that is exactly what our goal is. That's exactly what our purpose is here on earth. You see, one thing is this. You have to realize this. The reason why we're actually talking about this right now is because something happened to humanity many years ago, actually from the beginning, at the beginning of time. As a result of the fall of the first humans, something happened to our minds. Originally, our minds were in sync with God, were in sync, in line with the ways that God thinks. We had a perfect mind. Our minds were absolutely in His 100% capacity, functioning effectively, originally as it was supposed to function. But because man sinned, we ate the forbidden fruit, something happened to our mind. Our minds became redundant. Our minds died as a result. So we could no longer think the way God thinks. We lose the mind of God that used to be in us. So now, for us to begin to think like God, we need something to happen to our minds. We need our minds to be quickened. Our minds have to be quickened for us to be able to become all that God wants us to be. If the thoughts of God, the thoughts of peace that He has for us, the thoughts to bring us to His expected end will be achieved, then your mind needs to be quickened, in other words. Your mind needs to come back to life, needs to be living again. That's what the Spirit of God said when He inspired Paul to write this. He said to Paul, write this. But if the Spirit of Him that raised up Jesus from the dead dwell in you, He that raised up Christ from the dead shall also quicken your mortal bodies by the Spirit that dwelleth in you. Now, the mortal body there is inclusive of the mind, because when Paul is talking about the mortal body, he's talking about the mind also. The mind and this body that we wear, our mortality, they all make up our physical being, makes up what that place is talking about, the mortal body that Paul is referring to in that place. The Spirit of God that has been given to us, that is resident inside of us right now, especially when you're born again, has quickened us and has the capacity of quickening us continuously. That's why it is important to be born again. That's why Jesus came preaching the born again experience. When you get born again, a transformation happens in you, not only in your spirit man. Your spirit man is born again, of course. As a result of that, you now have the Spirit of God merging with your spirit man. Now, there is a reason for which the Spirit of God was given to you in the first place. It is given to you to quicken your mortal body. The same power, the same Spirit that rose Jesus up from the dead. I want you to recall something. When Jesus died, He was not half dead. He was completely dead. He died completely. His whole body, His brain, every bit of Him died. He was buried, and for 3 days He lay dead. But when the Spirit of God came upon him, he came back alive again. That was a symbolism of what happened to us when we ate of the forbidden fruit. Recall that God told Adam, you shall surely die. When you eat of that fruit, you will die. Indeed, dying you shall die. You will die, yes, spiritually, you will die in your soul, you will die in your body. So Jesus, when he died, he symbolized exactly what happened to us. But when the Spirit of God quickened him, he also symbolized what is going to happen to us when we receive him, when we accept him. John wrote in chapter 1 of John in verse 12, says, as many who received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God. The power of God, the Spirit of God comes into every man who believes in Jesus, and then quickens his spirit man, brings his spirit man back to life, reconnects him back to God, and then begins a process, a business of quickening our mortal bodies, our minds, begin to teach us how to think the thoughts of God, so we can begin to exhibit the habits of God, the actions of God, the characters of God, the abilities of God. That's the goal of Christianity. God wants you to obtain the ultimate mind. That should be your goal. That should be your endeavor. So if you're not born again, get born again, because that's the first step towards obtaining the ultimate mind.